Well, things from that point began to move forward briskly. Everyone was astonished with the tattoo. This living, responsive tattoo that had been imbued within Taleon. Everyone except his mother, who was absolutely livid, and spent a great deal of time yelling at Hamilton for doing something like that without her consent or permission. Didn't even tell her about it. She was upset to say the least, and demanded to be present any time Hamilton wanted to do anything from that point forward. But aside from that, everything else seemed to be looking up. They began a daily training regimen in which they would practice their magic and then, through simple combat practices, get use of that. Plenty of practice in practical use of that magic during combat. Most of the time, Hamilton and Taleon would be the sparring partners for each other, whilst Rico would spar with Fausta, everyone training their magical abilities, in both their knowledge and their use. And they all seemed to be making a fair amount of progress, each getting better at their own individual categories, learning to suffuse different elements, use different combinations and different attack patterns. This continued for about a week, at which point Hamilton began to become frustrated. Apparently, the extreme limitations of having to maintain the act of Taleon and Rico being sirens was exceptionally taxing for him. It highly limited the amount of power that Taleon was able to put out and train with, and he had to keep a large measure of his demonic energy suppressed, which divided his focus. None of these things appealed to Hamilton. However, he understood the necessity for them, seeing as they didn't know whether they still had people watching over them, making sure that their story was as it was. But eventually, the question of whether they were being watched was answered, as on this day of training, they began to see figures emerging from the woods outside of the clearing. Two of them they recognized immediately as the individuals from before, Finch and Crunch. However, they were not alone. This time, they brought guests. A guest that looked, well, rather prestigious. The character looked human enough at glance. However, his large black pupils that seemed to be all-encompassing, having no iris, and his hair that seemed to shift between silver and gold, fluidly, all of which was tied within a very neat bun on his head. He wore very prestigious clothing, robes, all adorned with gold, seemingly woven into the fabric, which seemed to be some sort of high-quality silk, having a shimmer to it. He carried himself with a great deal of importance. As he approached the group, along with Crunch and his tall, thin associate. As they were training at the time, Hamilton gave the signal for everyone to stop for the moment, as everyone raised their guard, unaware of who this new visitor was and why he was here. "Hello, my good man. I've come to have a chat with you. You and your friends. You wouldn't mind that, would you?" the man said, a calm, debonair smile on his face, in Hamilton's direction. "Well, we're practicing for the moment. A bit busy for guests." "Oh, but why training so hard?" Do you have something important you're planning on doing? And training sirens, no less. It seems a bit of a waste of one's time, the man said, looking towards Taleon and Rico. Well, I think so as well, Hamilton replied. However, their father has asked me to train them nonetheless. I owe him a few favors. Teaching his children magic is just the exchange. I'd rather not deal with sirens myself, but a deal's a deal. I've already agreed to it, so there's no backing out. I have my honor to think about, you do know what that's like, correct? He said to the man. You look like a high-class gentleman, so I suppose you do understand good etiquette. To honor one's agreements. Why, yes, of course, the man replied. Oh, and how rude of me. I haven't yet introduced myself. My name is Moefsta. I happen to be a top-tier mercenary. I'm from a different guild than the two behind me. For whatever the reason being, I suppose it just be the name of this Siren King, who I have to admit even I've heard about. They decided to take an interest in the lot of you. At first, this seemed very uninteresting, only to be proof that there was nothing here that was really of value. But then they told me of this little gathering of individuals who didn't seem to be hiding away like the rest of the demons. They didn't think it was strange due to the fact that the Siren King was with them. But then a strange new individual joined the lot, and they began to practice magic together. And according to them, this new individual and guest had an extraordinarily high demonic energy reading, much higher than that of any of the demons common in Earth Realm. Yes, I'm not from around here, Hamilton replied. I'm just here doing them a favor. As I said, agreements are agreements. One must honor them, no matter the distasteful location that it can bring you to. Why, yes, of course, the man replied. But after hearing about these stories, I began to do a little bit of contemplation. It stands to reason that you wouldn't have to hide like all the other myriad of demons who are weak and low level. With your strength, it's unnecessary. But that also raises a very real problem. You see, all of the most powerful demons in this world are exceptionally well known. The few that are at your level, and believe me, there are very few here in Earthrealm, are known well enough that anyone could tell you their location, their names, their abilities, their race. But you are an enigma, not from here, as you put it. Yes, the problem being, Hamilton said, beginning to get a very serious expression on his face. I'm getting the feeling that this is going to be trouble. I wouldn't advise that. Oh, well, I don't want to cause any trouble, the man replied, still smiling warmly. It's just that whenever a powerful demon enters this world, people take note of it. Except there are no notes about your entry into this world. That is the problem with your presence, that no one knows when you got here, why you're here, aside from this little deal that you say that you're participating in. And you see, that really only leaves two possibilities, and that's because there were two breaches. You see, powerful entities recently breached the demon gates leading out of Matara, causing a great deal of devastation and worry. I am aware of one of them, and where they reside, but the other is a mystery to me. And then I hear this story of an exceptionally powerful demon just popping out of nowhere. You do know what I'm about to suggest. That you're the one who breached the gate leading out of Matara. Which begs the question of why? What would lead you to breach the gate just to leave? It seems like an awful lot of trouble to go through. And then, not only do you expend all the energy to breach the gate and get out, to find your way to the human world, but then you simply dawdle about, teaching a few random sirens some magical tricks, which once again begs the question of why, he said, as his debonair smile began to fade, and an exceptionally serious look came across him. You see, I have a hypothesis, a theory of sorts. I believe that you are in fact the one who breached through the gates. I believe that you were under orders from someone. I don't really care who. Truth be told, it doesn't matter, because I'm under orders from someone as well. And I believe that our orders might have a few things in common. You see, like my orders, I believe yours were to find the lost prince. At least as the first part of that order, the arrangement of things. Where I believe things differ will most likely be the second part, the what to do with him afterwards segment. But before we get to that, we bring ourselves back around to why you're dawdling about. If indeed your mission, what you were asked to achieve when you assailed the gate and found your way to the human world, was indeed to find the prince, as was mine when I breached, sabotaging the gate behind me so that none could follow, so that I would have the time I needed to find him without interference. If you are here to find him, then the only explanation for why you're not doing exactly that is because you already have. You know the location of the prince, don't you? The man said, glaring daggers at Hamilton, a golden aura beginning to pick up around him as wind started to funnel out from where he stood. There, Hamilton glared him right back in the eyes, a powerful green aura beginning to filter out, a counteracting wind pressing the opposite direction as they stared each other down, both unflinching. And the only thing that could possibly be going through everyone else's minds was that this just went very poorly. They were hoping to have more time, but by all appearances, it looked like time was up.